Alright, hello everybody. This is Mr. MMW here. I'm here to present to you something of a tutorial or setup about Japan in War in the Pacific. I am playing against the AI and I'm starting from the beginning. Here are my settings. The most important thing about this campaign is that I'm mainly going to be testing economic things and things about the research screen, I guess. Also, to generally show that this game must not be played necessarily in a competitive way. It can also be enjoyed in a more casual way. That's how I prefer to do it. Sort of a more relaxing experience than you know being on your nerves all the time. So in any case, I hope you will be able to learn something from this. And let's get started. I got a little checklist that I want to get through. Now the problem with playing Japan is that there are many things that you have to do right off the bat, and there is no learning curve. You must do everything perfectly from the start. Of course, this is not completely true, but although you have many advantages over the allies, you can make mistakes as the allies and get away with it. With Japan, you cannot. I'm not going to go over the very basics of what this is. So I'm just gonna presume you guys already understand how basic uh, functions of the game work. Check out Johan's video for that. First of all, that I want first thing that I want to cover is the macroeconomy. That's the thing that I am most interested in, and the thing that is the most important in such a game, because I prefer to play it. You are dealing with the entire Pacific, and you are dealing with a long war sometimes. And for this, you need economics. And Japan is not built for a long war. Therefore, you must make it for a long war. And let us look at certain large scale things. First of all, you have Japan, obviously. In Japan, we have tons of industry and obviously all our research and production. But we don't have that many resources and oil. We can see that we have a large stockpile, but it will run out in about 1.5 years. With resources actually at the game start, the situation is even worse, but thankfully we have large stockpiles in China, in Korea, that we can transport. Right? Now, obviously we need to transport these resources to Japan, but on the long term, we need to expand outwards, and that means oil. Oil is very important, and conquering all the oil bases that you can is very important, obviously. The most important of these being Balikpapan and Palembang, secondarily obviously Surabaya. Now, how should we go about doing this? I have right off the bat, I'm going to switch over to the tracker. Hold on. If I can manage to find it. Oops, that's the wrong one. I put it here. Hold on. Tracker. There we go. Is it gonna show? I guess not. Hold on. There we go. Finally found it. So this is the tracker. Obviously, you should install it if you don't. This is a game. Let me read. Turn order. Yeah, this is another game that I have played, and it's Japan, and it is on nearly the first, yes, exactly on the 1st of May this turn is. So you can also see uh, how the game has been going. And if you look at the chart here, we can see the fundamentals about the economics of the game. Obviously, critically the most important is oil. Resources on the long term, not a problem. Not the problem. You must not even worry about it. Only don't, obviously, make sure you don't repair it or manpower or light industry. But you can see, first of all, supply is very important. If you want to take a look at my totals here, you can take a look over time. If you want to see how the somewhat average game progresses, here's the naval and merchant stuff, the armaments, yeah, manpower, and heavy industry. These keep going up. There's no reason to not spend them. Now this is a bit of a problem. As you can see, resources are just not a problem. They will keep going up. Your fuel, well, fundamentally it's tied to your oil. You will always have more refineries than oil, so it is again not a problem. Your fuel generation, that is. Now your oil will keep decreasing, as you can see over here, since the beginning, I have nearly lost 1 million. This is not good, obviously. Although obviously the trend is decreasing. It's not gonna increase, obviously. It's limited by the number of refineries, but it's going to keep decreasing. At the current rate, I'm in May, remember, in about a year and something, a year and a half, I will be out of it. Now the supply is a bit of a bigger problem. You start with 3.4 million, yet you can go within 2 months. You can spend more than 1 million. This is a bit of a problem, yes. And I would classify anything below 2 million as in the danger zone, because that essentially means that you have very little supplies in Japan and China, and you simply need a lot on the map to sustain your troops. In this game, I invested quite a bit into heavy industry, a bit too much. And in retrospect, I have learned quite a few things. First of all, simple math. You know, in total, I have captured pretty much every single oil base in this game, yeah, which in total is about 3,000 oil centers, which, if we convert to fuel, it gives us 27,000 fuel. Obviously, right now it's more because we have a buffer of oil, but on the long term, we're going to be stuck with 2,700. And as you can see, generally this is a bit more than what usually happens. But let's say 27, we have an output of 27,000 fuel, and about half should go to heavy industry, and about half goes to ship use, generally speaking. On the long term, you'll obviously want to decrease this, but there is not really any need to go to up to 9,000 heavy industry. 8,000 is about the right amount, and you will capture it, much heavy industry, and you can repair it. It doesn't hurt to have a little bit of heavy industry building. And as you can see, supply totals are about half coming from light industry and the oil refineries, and about half coming from the heavy industry. Of course, the best kind of industry is light industry because it uses an infinite resource, but it is impractical to build it up. It is simply not productive. Therefore, we are working with this. You can also start building these a little bit, but again, not very productive. You can also see my pools if you want to see an ongoing game. Anyway, let's go back to the game. Oh yeah, actually, I think I wanted to show another thing. Oh yeah, let's go back to the game. Not this one. This one. Yes. Here you go. Hello game. Back with the music. So, talking about convoys. Obviously, you're gonna want to set up convoys from Shanghai, from Keiju, from Port Arthur. And over here, this is the most annoying one because it has a relatively small port. Yeah, you're gonna want to expand these ports. And it's gonna accumulate here, and you want to have tons of tiny task forces moving back and forth. Same here. Yeah. There is really no reason to be, if you're playing this more casually, there's no reason to super fixate on maximum fuel efficiency. You can simply use second line cargo ships. I would classify those as these ones, you know, anything that has less than 12 knots should be used for this. And even stuff with 12 knots, it isn't particularly good, this is a good one. Anything that your troops will usually not be on, you should use for these convoys. And eventually, you know, from Manila and from Singapore. Singapore obviously will be your hub in the south, yeah? Now with oil, I'm gonna make it very easy for you because it can be quite difficult. At the beginning, you have tons of oilers, and you have mainly two classes. You see the Shirotokos here. You group all of these up into one task force and you go to Miri. And from Miri you go to Japan or maybe even to China. And you do this over and over again. Easy. With these guys that usually go and help out the Kitobutai, I would either go help out the Kitobutai or go from Tokyo to Truk or something similar. Bring fuel to this region and later on perhaps even go to from Surabaya to Rabaul directly. So these are for the Miri convoy and these are for the fuel to Rabaul. Easy. I've also calculated these things, yeah. If you look here, you have a couple of classes. These are the Tonnen whalers. Oops. The Tonnen whalers are the biggest ones and the most valuable. Keep these safe. These alone are quite useful. I would use every single one of these, of this class, together with all these Manzius, TMs. Combine all of those and use it to combine. I would usually transport. You can see it has only a max port of 4. So we really shouldn't be using Balikpapan to export to Japan. Same with Tarakan, yeah. But bring all of these to Surabaya, and from Surabaya you can use all of those classes to transport directly to Japan. And it's about accurate in the amount. With these guys, the other ones are fairly similar. These ones, the Type 1 TL, the Type N TL, group all of these up, transport everything from Palembang. Again, you can't use Palembang because it only has a port of 4. You should ship this to Singapore first. Also, a little stuff from Medan to here and here, yeah, and bring everything from Singapore to Japan. This is your convoys. They're as simple as it gets, really. You really don't have to think more about it. And with these guys, I would use them for small oil transports, either from here, yeah, whatever small oil bases, right? And bring them to the bigger ones, or maybe even as small oilers to transport to these bases. Good. That about covers the convoys generally. And also I would begin at the beginning of the game, I would bring as much supply and fuel possible to Truk or to directly to Rabaul, simply to, because in the future there will be many allied submarines and you want to get as much stuff in there as possible. Let's say about, I don't know, 200,000 supply or even 300,000 would be good. Of course, be mindful, you know, There's no limit here. You can put as much as you want. Good. Same with here. You probably want to bring a lot of supply, at least to 100,000, simply to fuel your army, because you don't capture much supply here, unfortunately. You do when you capture Palembang, because you generate about 1,000 supply every day here, so it's a very good source of supply to maintain your army and your conquests. Good. What's next? And next is heavy industry. Yeah, again, as I said, I would not expand much heavy industry, but the heavy industry that I would expand is stuff here, and obviously I would repair stuff that is already damaged. For example, in Singapore, if you manage to capture it early, Georgetown, Bangkok, Saigon, and here, simply because you don't have to ship any fuel there, they will generate supply forever. So it's very good. And do it in small doses. Also, distribution of supply. You might also eventually need to ship supply to China. Not much. Don't do it too much. Again, you do not want to be too low here. The R&D requires a disturbingly large amount of supply. So make sure you do have that supply. Do not underestimate it. You do not want to go under, let's say, 50k supply in Tokyo. With fuel, you're generally not gonna run out, so don't be afraid to ship stuff out. Alright. Let's go over ship production and ship classes. Let's see. What ship classes should you go for? Well, let's go by ETA. This is generally accepted as the way to go. Generally accelerate everything. This one you don't have to. Until, which one? Ah, yes, here. There is a point you halt the Shinano, because she's useless in this game. And you also stop these ones. They simply come in too early. Too late, sorry. But you accelerate these ones in return. And they will probably pop up in the middle of 43 or so. Yeah. If you can't afford it, because you see, where is it? Here 2000, and obviously we don't have 2000. Perhaps do like this. Yeah. I would also halt the Yamato. Perhaps simply halt both of them. But that's up to you. And you see we're already somewhat balanced. I would also halt everything that is completely useless, like these ones. I would accelerate these, and the destroyers, they are very valuable, but there are simply not enough points. With APs, you don't have much. With AKs, every single one that has an STD, yeah, can be converted to a tanker. So if you find one that you like, go ahead and build it. You will be able to make a tanker out of it, and it is very useful. These guys aren't very useful, but yeah, you can halt or build them. Same with these tankers. Some of these are bigger than others, so you can build them. Halt every single one that has an HA next to it here, or is a transport submarine, meaning everything that starts with a U over here. Alright, that about covers it for this. I want to go through this pretty quickly. Ah, yes. Another important thing is conversions. We can take a look at upgrades and conversions. Yeah. What are the most important ones? Obviously, some of the most important ones are the Tenryu. You probably want to and they come in early in February, you want to convert these guys because they can become quite useful. Same with the Kumas, you want to preserve these ones because they actually become pretty decent ships later on. The Kitakamis are an absolute meme. Take a look at this. These ones you do not want to upgrade. You want to keep them and use them like this. Take a look. Yeah. Same with the Nagara. Yeah. You can convert them eventually. A lot of them don't get upgrades quite early, but you want to keep an eye out on it. One of these guys, yeah. Which one was it? The Maya? No. Ah, yes, this one. I think it's the first Mogami because in reality, it's the Mogami got its gun, one of its front guns, blown off, and it was replaced with a radar set. Yeah, and you can do this in 7 of 42, which is quite early for any kind of ship-based Japanese radar. So keep this in mind. Not many others that are very useful. Ship. Good. Ship upgrades. Next 2 months, let's see. Yes. This from my game where I already upgraded a bunch of them. But the Asasho is here, and the Takao. These guys, a bunch of destroyers and a bunch of heavy cruisers get an upgrade early on. Upgrade them, and they will be quite nice. Not many others are very valuable. For example, these guys are no reason to. And the convergence. Where is it? DD? Hello? No, I guess there is not. The one type of DD that you must upgrade, if I can find it, if I can search for it, no? Interesting, I can't. Oh, yeah. APDs. A lot of ships can upgrade to them, but the Minazuki, was it this the one? No, it was the Kamikaze class, yeah. For some reason I can't find it here. Or was it? I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, the Kamikaze class is the class that you should be upgraded. There. Here you go. You can see in February you can get a bunch of AA or APD if I can find it. Doing this stuff on camera isn't the best. Yeah. You can get a radar in December. I would say go for this one. Anyway, that's about it for this one. Next on the list is aircraft and engine production. Here, here comes quite a bit of disagreement in the community. Let's switch back to the game. Hold on. Let's close all this stuff because I have my own interpretation of this. I already did a research R&D setup for this game. I'll share it with you. But R&D depends fully on what you intend to produce, and there is no shortage of research slots, right? But there is a shortage of engine slots. So I would advise keeping as few types of engines in production as possible. And for me, this means cutting out every kind of engine besides the HA32, 33, 34, and 35. And for research, only the HA60 and the 45. Now, this again comes back to what types of planes you want to produce. And I'm going to share with you my idea for what constitutes a good, what do you call it? A good research setup. Here you go. I have more stuff about research and stuff here, but here is general. If you're new to this, you can simply follow this guide and it will serve you very well in the future. Here is for the Army and for the Navy, yeah, different types of planes and the year, right? And here's the engines that they use. For the Army fighter, the Ka-43, the Oscar, and the upgraded one, yeah, following their update path is quite easy and very good. I'd also continue this into 43, but no reason to keep doing it into 44, because you get the the Frank, you get this one, and of course the upgraded version over here. This is a fighter bomber, which I quite like, the Nick. It is very useful in general, as you will see in the future. And here the Ki-83, this one uses a different engine, the HA43, but it comes so late that it is questionable, even though it is, in my opinion, the best plane that the Japanese have. Unfortunately, not that useful. Level bombers are obviously the Sally, just for a little bit in the beginning, and then the Helen. Keep going with the Helen, although in the end you want to switch to the Peggy. You might also be able to switch to this earlier. Right, for recon, easy, just a direct upgrade. For fighter, I go down the 0 line, this. And for the land-based Navy fighters, I go for the Georges, yeah, for the lines. And only at the very end, if you can manage to last that long, you know, you should invest into the A7. Otherwise, frankly, the George is a perfectly good fighter, and this one, it's only slightly worse than the A7. When it comes to lever bombers, you're gonna produce these ones early, but then you're gonna switch to the G3M3s for long range bombing and torpedo bombing, and to these ones for medium range. These are also very fast, so you want to produce this. Recon, just go with this. Patrols, obviously the H8K is very good, and the Jake and its upgraded versions. The torpedo bombers are very, and the dive bombers are very useful. You want to switch to these ones. You don't want to get the third and fourth variant because they're useless, and you want to upgrade to the B7 as quickly as possible, which is unfortunately only in 44. For the torpedoes, just go to the B6 and 2 directly, and to A, and there you go. This is as minimal as possible, and these are the amounts that you generally want to have for 2. Ignore the surplus and stockpile, right? But you can read these ones. Generally, these are target values that you want to be producing each month for each engine, right? Generally, you also want to boost these ones to the target of 800. Quite a lot, but you're gonna be needed it. This is also long term, right? And the HA60 for 150. You really want that Judy. And for 43, This is generally, when I say one factory, I mean one factory of 30. So, 30 times 5 factories on Judy's, 4 on Jill's, and so on. This is generally, perhaps more Peggy's you might want, or something similar. But you have to keep in mind a balance between engine and plane production. Good. What else? Ah, yes, the research. Right, this is the research. Okay, let me show you in game. Right. So if you want to just straight up copy it, here you go. Ah, yes, of course, I don't have enough supply on the first day to upgrade everything, and you shouldn't. But generally, upgrade all of these to, the values that I've noted previously. You might also, want to bump some of these in excess, because you can never have enough engines. Same here. Reach those numbers that I have noted. I'm also going to be producing these planes for a while, simply to consume these engines, and after I do so, I'm gonna switch over to these planes, right, to boost some of these planes that are already in research. When it comes to upgrade lines, you want to follow the Rufe, right, because it upgrades very fast, and then upgrade it all the way to, whatever you want. 7 here, 7 here. Technically, it's better if you switch to this first, right? But that consumes a little too much supply, so I would rather not. Alright, that about covers it for research. Ask me if anything is you want to see. The equipment upgrades. The only real equipment upgrades that the Japanese get is MAD ASW, right? ASW radar in 44, so you don't really have to worry that much about it. And radar, you do get a little radar in March, but you also want you get some radar units relatively early, so you want to get them, in position in Rabal, in Palagine, wherever it is useful for you. Now, what's the operational plan? Well, historically, here is the 25th Army, here is the 14th Army, here is the 15th Army, here, and the 16th Army is a little all over the place, but it is here, right, and here. Not the goal. The goal of the 25th Army, as historical, right, is to capture Malaya. The goal of the 14th is to capture the Philippines, and the goal of the 16th is to capture first this island, then some of these bases and celebs, and then after that invade Java itself. Now, as historical, I can tell you from personal experience in this game, usually the hiccup isn't, oh, and the 15th obviously goes into Burma. The hiccup isn't usually Malaya or Java. The hiccup usually is the Philippines, because the Americans have quite a lot of forces. And you have few, I think 4, if I take a look here. 1, 2, and I think another, yeah, 1. I think there's another one. You have about 4 divisions that are free, so to say, that you can do whatever you want with them. And I would encourage you to send 3 of them here to help with the 14th, and 1 of them to Rabal, and then to Port Moresby. You really want to get at least 1 division in this area early, so that you can kick out anything that the Americans can have. SNLF troops will not be enough, certainly not in the long term, right? So that's generally the operational plan. The operational plan that I'm gonna be going for early on is exactly that. I'm not going to be. A lot of people make the mistake of, well, choice to move the 15th army also into Malaya, but you don't really need it. The 25th army has more than enough power, and you really want to get Mulmain as quickly as possible because it has good terrain, it can build fortifications, and can stop you dead in your tracks. You really want to prioritize Singapore, you know, Clarkfield, and Rangoon because these are the only built up airfields in the region, I guess. Java too, but it's obviously much more exposed. And you do not want to let them build fortifications. So you must go fast and go in all directions. In this game so I'm gonna be dedicated the entire 25th army to Malaya. I'm probably gonna land him on Sing. I'll see about that. I'm also gonna start making the journey so that by the end of December I'm in Mulmain, and from that I'll probably start invading Burma. I'm gonna dedicate the 14th plus help to rush in and as quickly as possible capture Clarkfield in order to split the American forces in half, right? Rather than rush Manila, I'd rather rush here. And the 16th, I'm mainly going to be focusing on this. You want to get in here quite quickly in order to displace them, and also to get Balikpapan, because you want to have a source of oil so that you don't have to import everything. Good. And obviously using my SNL forces everywhere. Anything I missed? No, not really. This is the plan for the Southern Army in China. The situation is somewhat simpler, although a lot more click intensive, you know. Here is the 13th Army, here is the 23rd. Clean these bases up with the 23rd. Clean these bases up and these forces up with the 13th. Then join up and invade here and capture this region. This will take you, I can tell you from personal experience, about until May. This terrain is not very nice. You can see it in the roadmap. And there are a lot of Chinese forces. But you can do it if you have enough concentration of power. In North China, you obviously want to get your stuff out of Manchuria. You also want to, let me show you straight up. Where is it? Here is the 2nd Air Division. You want to relocate this. Right now you cannot relocate your aircraft from China, but if you switch these guys to, where is it? The China Expeditionary Army, I hope. I made the save anyway. I've actually never experimented with putting it in this command. You can transfer them to here. Yes, you can. And that's a priority you have to do on the first turn. So everything, generally I would relocate the Air Force to Kaifeng and Hankow and assert dominance in this region. You want to first target, their Air Force, and after that you can bomb whatever you want. Priority in North China is getting Nanyang, Loyang, and then just drive into Xi'an. Xi'an is very important, and from there Lanzhou. Without these bases, China cannot supply its heavy industry, and they will surrender because of it. They will simply run out of supply. And also this road, it might look really shitty road, but it only takes 1 month to cross it, generally speaking. And once you do, it's not that bad really, perhaps even less than 1 month, because I faced resistance when I did it. But by May, by April even, you can even get here and from here into chunking. It is not that difficult, and any other path through here or through here is 10 times more difficult. So you really should want to do this. Now, how should we progress? Generally, my goals for December are capturing Clarkfield, Singapore, and Port Moresby. I really want to get this done as quickly as possible for December, right? In China, probably, I don't know. There's a lot of reorganization in China, so that will probably take a little longer, right? After that, and you should generally set up such monthly objectives, right? In general, I want to essentially capitulate all of Malaya, pretty much everything in the Philippines. Maybe these bases, we can deal with them later. Capture the entirety of Borneo and Celebes and all of these bases and establish myself here, right? Meaning that essentially, in order to set up myself up for February, right, I want to completely finish Bataan. Bataan itself will probably take like a month, just so you know. Don't expect that you can capitulate the Philippines simply because you took Clark Field. Okay? And from here, I will probably straight up invade Java. And by February, by the end of February, I want to capture all of Java and essentially capitulate everything in this region. And this will allow me to put my full attention on capturing Rangoon and Burma. Also, perhaps make a push here, and then perhaps in April or May, I can straight up do one last invasion into India and Ceylon, presumably, right? This is the general operational plan. You want to get everything, but you have to do it in steps. That's about the most efficient way that I can think of. If you can, honestly, if you can, you should straight up invade the Java with the 16th, but that without the help of the 25th, but that may not go quite as planned. As we go on, we will see what will happen. All right, so let's look at the army setup, right? Ah yes, this is also very important. You want to do you have these task forces. If they have this what do you call it, brackets, that means they are special move task forces, meaning you can teleport. I think the radius was 70 hexes. I don't remember exactly, but you can teleport everywhere with them. So, and you should carefully, very carefully, rearrange them in such a way that you have balanced, task forces, balanced invasion points. Now I would simply invade everywhere, both here, here, here. Do not make the mistake of overloading Mersing, because it has a size 1 port. So you want to rush here. I will show you a trick that you can do, with armored units, in order to get into Singapore without a shock attack. Now I'll be trying that. Same here. You want to land as much here or here, yeah. Perhaps even here, I don't know. Generally, I would recommend Lingayen because it is a very quick drive to here. I've never actually tried here, but Lingayen has a yes, it doesn't have a natural port. Yeah, Lingayen is actually better. Of course, San Fernando is even better, but because it has an airfield. But I would rather rush into Clarkfield immediately. I'll say it when I do the actual setup, but I think that's how I'm gonna do it. When it comes to the plane setup, yes, and also the Kidobutai, I am going to bomb Pearl Harbor. Here is a question about the utility of this. I'm gonna use obviously my planes to bomb Manila. I don't really think I need any carriers here, not at the beginning. There is, of course, the meme of the Kaga in, you know, Kaga in the Dutch East Indies, but you put yourself in too much risk, honestly. A single swordfish and all your dreams of conquest with your carriers can be over. So I would not risk it. I would bomb Pearl Harbor simply in order to destroy as much as I can. I don't see any reason why not to do so. Now the pilots. Here is a bit of a interesting thing. You might see, for example, how you should set up. Perhaps not these ones. Any zeros? Yes, here. So these are pilots. This is a training squad, right? Go. Here you go. Train. Now you set them up. You can see I have nothing in reserve yet. Let's eject all of these guys to reserve. Let's keep one, and this is a good training guy. You can get a bunch of reserves. Now there are generally two approaches to this. Either you pull as many troops into the reserve as possible and then you train them, or you train them, you get them from the replacement and then train them as needed, essentially, as you get the chance. Organizatorily, and as you can see, right? So essentially you distribute them already. You pull them, all of them, from the pool, and you get them into the reserve, even though they are untrained. And then as they are into the reserve, right, instead of pulling from replacement, you take from your existing pool. This is a bit micromanagey, I don't like it that much, but I might do it simply to test it up. So you will do this, right? And then pull, and then send again, and you do this with all the squads until you have reached, let's say you have 2000 pilots in pool, let's say 500 fighter pilots, and you would do this per month, right? And over here you would simply train all the least experienced ones, right? And this is also to help with the frontline squads, meaning that you can, if your zeros, for example, take casualties, you can simply pull from the reserve and say a 70 plus or 60 plus or something, so that you don't have to worry about pulling in fresh recruits, or even worse, doing this, right? You don't want to do this. I'm also going to train quite a bit of ASW. Also resize. I'm going to, in this campaign, I'm gonna turbo boost the pilots, these kinds of pilots, train ASW, naval search, I'm gonna bring the Kaga and other ships here, and I'm gonna resize, see just how much training we can do, because training pilots are very valuable for Japan. I want to test just what's the limit of it. There you go. I think that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. I'm obviously gonna set it up, and I'm gonna come back when I have finished my setup turn and talk about what I have done.